Good day to the Shins and welcome back to Tagum Doctors College. And this is again Teacher Anna, your learning partner. So last week we have learned about the narrative and descriptive writing. So today we are going to learn about the reading and writing fiction. So at the end of the lesson, guys, you are going or you shall be able to distinguish the difference between a fictional work from forms of writing or from other forms of writing, and then you are also going to demonstrate a higher degree of understanding about the genres of fiction by citing its major features, characteristics, and examples. So, tara na guys, let's learn fiction. Okay? So now let's go to the next one. So, ano pala yung fiction? So, what do you think? What is a fiction? So, fiction, guys, is defined as a series of imagined facts which illustrate truth about human life. Okay? So, it is now the series of imagined. So, hindi siya in reality. So most likely it is an imagined facts. So sometimes also it also illustrates the truth about human life. So kanang fiction, even though it's like an imagination or a series of imagination or imagined facts, just like Harry Potter, it's also talks about the truth of human life. Now let's go to the next one. So today we are going to know the different genres of fiction and some examples of each. So we have 10 kinds of or genres of fiction. Okay, so ma'am, yung fable ba is a part of a fiction? Yes, of course. So this is also an imagined facts. So dito, when we say fable, it's or is a brief story that offers some pointed statements of truth or explicitly states a moral. So dito guys, usually yung fable is ginagampanan ng hayop. Okay, so just like the story of the hare and the tortoise. So yung mga character natin dito is ginagampanan ng hayop. That is a fable. Now let's go to parable. So a parable is a brief narrative with a realistic plot. So it implicitly teaches a moral. So just like the parable of the prodigal son, the four soils parable. So even though it is an imaginative uh, writing or kind of writing, it is also talking about the realistic plot. So meaning, nangyayari talaga siya sa totoong buhay. At nagtuturo din siya ng moral. Okay, or moral truth. So example nito guys is the parable of the prodigal son. Okay, now let's go to number 3. So number 3 guys is a tale. Okay, so a tale guys is a short narrative that is handed down from the past. So ano ba yung kaibahan ng parable? So yung parable natin is meron siyang realistic plot at saka nagtuturo siya ng moral lesson. While yung tale, even though it also teaches us a moral lesson, it can handed down from the past. So meaning like mga story-story sa unang panahon hantod napasa sa sa mga new generations karon. Example ana guys is Jack and the Beanstalk Rapunzel. So that is the example of a tale. Here also in the picture, fairy tales are also example of tales. Okay, because it can also teaches us moral, but it also handed down from the past. So just like Cinderella, Snow White, so it is handed down from the past to the present. Now let's go to the next one. So the next one is the romantic fiction. So when we say romantic fiction, it is a narrative that focuses on adventures and daring actions. So ito yung like mga relationship, yung mag-asawa, mag-boyfriend, girlfriend. So dito yun sinisulat sa romantic fiction. So they belong to the romantic fiction. So it's just like a romantic relationship of a boy and a girl, or maybe isang example nito guys is John Austen's Sense and Sensibility. So kung sino na dito nakabasa ng romantic fiction na to, this is an example of romantic fiction. So sa hindi pa nakabasa, pwede nyo rin i-download online. So this is entitled Sense and Sensibility, and the author is Jane Austen. Now, let's go to the next one. So the next one, guys, is the realistic fiction. So ano pala tong realistic fiction? So when romantic fiction talks about romance, the realistic fiction it also talks about the real life. Okay, it depicts life as it is. So anong nakikita sa totoong buhay, ito rin yung nakikita sa realistic fiction. So even though it is katang isip lang gihapon siya. So example nito guys is the novels of Sinclair, Lewis and Henry James. Okay, the novels of Sinclair. So, dito rin sa ating nakuha na information in the online. So, realistic fiction involves stories with characters and settings that are true to life and events that could really happen. So, usually, yung mga characters and ating settings are like true to life. So, like, gikuha lang nato siya. Like, for example, mga teleserye, so mga novels. So, it is like true to life and events, or true to life events too. So they also have the tendency to really happen or even existing in the real world. That is realistic fiction. Now, mm, so I think na-escape natin tong isang fiction. So the next one guys is the naturalistic fiction. So naturalistic fiction guys is also called extreme or ultra realism. So kwatong nasubraan na siya pagka like also happen in the real life, but to the extreme na siya. Like, there is a possibility nga mahitabo siya, pero extreme na kaayo. At saka ultra-realism na kaayo siya. So that is what we call the naturalistic fiction. Okay? So, example nito guys is Tudor Dresser's An American Tragedy. So, if you want to know more about this one, so you can also read the examples that is given in your modules. Now let's go to the historical novel. So historical novel is also one genre of fiction. Historical novel is a detailed reconstruction of life in another time and perhaps in another place. So because it is a historical novel, so it's like a detailed reconstruction. So mga nangyayari sa unang panahon, or maybe like added with the beautiful imagination or creativity of the author. So it really relies on the detailed reconstruction of life. So kung anong nangyari noong unang panahon, and then perhaps in another place. So example nito guys is Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall Bringing Up the Bodies. Okay? So ito yung mga, because there is war, and then there is no gender equality. So nung unang panahon, marami mga bata na pinapatay, women na pinapatay. So this one is historical novel is like the reconstruction of the past life, but has most likely meron din siyang kanang touch ng history, at it also has a touch of like reality in the history. So just like the Wolf Hall, bringing up the bodies. Now let's go to the psychological novel. So psychological novel guy transfers its settings from the outside world to the mind and the inner life of a character. So ang psychological novel guys, ito yung nag-transfer from the outside world to the mind. So like for example, what is in the mind of a murderer? What is in the mind of a criminal? Or maybe a thief? So, dito ginapakita ang mga psychological na mga naa sa utok nila. So, like, They feel very happy if they can kill someone. So that is for psychological novel. So ginapakita dito, ginasulat dito sa iyahang novel kung unsa tong naa sa iyahang utok, naa sa iyahang character, or naa sa iyahang attitude as a character of that novel. So example nito guys is James Joyce Ulysses. So you can also study this one or read this one if you have vacant time. It is entitled Ulysses and authored by James Joyce. Next is the science fiction. So this is yung psychological novel. In Wikipedia, guys, it means like it is a literary genre that emphasizes interior characterization as well as the motive, circumstances, and internal action which is derivative from and creates external actions, not content to state that happens, but rather reveal studies the motivation behind the action. So that's why it's like a psychological novel kasi pinapakita dito, sinusulat dito kung ano yung nasa behind ng kanyang mga action. So bakit siya pumapatay ng tao? Bakit siya nagre-rape ng tao? So ginaskuan dito, ginasulat dito kung unsa iyang motivation or the real uh, character of that certain novel. That's why it's called psychological novel. So now we also have the science fiction. Okay, so like what we have the okay kak okay. So that is one of the science fiction. It deals with the futuristic concepts, so just like Star Wars, Independence Day, just like that. So they are science fiction. So it deals with futuristic concepts such as a new world setting, futuristic science and technology. It talks about the space and time travel, the intergalactic warfare, the extraterrestrial life, alien abduction, and parallel universes. So just like what we have seen here, this is a science fiction. Like in the future, there would be like this, like everything would be building. So, and everything is like more on technology and more on robots. So that is in the field of science. So example nito guys is Under the Skin, which is authored by Michael Faber. So to know more about this example, you can also read this and download it in the online. We also have the non-realistic fiction. Kung meron tayong realistic, guys, meron din tayong non-realistic. Like, it's very impossible that will happen in the real life. Or maybe it is in the other world. So, ito yung ang non-realistic fiction, guys, is involves events that cannot happen in real life. So, basin pag balik-taron ang mundo, dili gyud siya may tabo sa tinuod na kalibutan or in the real life. So, the author really set this one into another world, into another galaxies or dimensions. So just like the example, The Accursed by Joyce Carol Oates. Okay, so this is an example of non-realistic fiction. So if you have time, guys, try to read these novels and books about the fiction, like The Accursed, Under the Skin, Ulysses, uh, Wolf Hall, Bringing Up the Bodies, The American Tragedy, novels of St. Clair, Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility. We also have Jack and the Beanstalk Rapunzel, The Parable of the Prodigal Son, and The Hare and the Tortoise. Okay, so those are uh, the different genres of fiction. So to know more about it, guys, try to watch the video that you can see in the next exercises. So this is again Teacher Anna. Always remember, guys, that the capacity to learn is a gift. Our ability to learn is a skill. And the willingness to learn, guys, is our choice. That is from Brian Herbert. So I hope that you have learned a lot from our lesson today. Thank you so much for listening. You're pretty wonderful. Now let's go to your assessment. Bye. See you again.